Is Cuties child porn? Has been the question on many people's minds, and I can categorically say it is not. It can, however, be considered a gateway into that very thing, as it is certainly not a movie intended for your average right-thinking audience. What it is the most disgustingly obscene characterization of young children it has ever been my misfortune to encounter. Luckily, words don't fail me, or this would be an extremely short video, but what words cannot do is adequately describe how truly awful this movie really is. Now don't get me wrong, this movie is not as bad as it could have been, but it is about as bad as it can be when compared to anything that could be considered a healthy or normal way for young girls to be portrayed. Now, I ended up watching this disgusting throw-up fest of a movie because I was thinking about making a video on how bothered I was by its existence, when my partner asked me, what am I working on? I told her about the controversy that this movie had created, and she simply couldn't believe that such a movie had been made, and that there must be some mistake. So she suggested we have a look at it, so at the very least I would be able to comment on it from a position of knowledge, and that is one of the biggest mistakes we have ever made. This movie is unworthy of any kind of consideration, in any way, for any reason. There is nothing of value to be gained by this. It is simply pure filth. And the people who made it should be begging on their knees for forgiveness from the rest of polite civilized society, for creating what really is a horrible movie, and not just because of its exploitation of very young girls, also because it's just plain rubbish. Okay, let's get into this, and I will explain what is so very wrong, and in part, not so wrong with this movie. Let's start with the not so wrong. And that pretty much boils down to one single thing, which is the fact that, with only two exceptions, those being a creepy laser tag manager and the dance competition judge, all other adults seem to pretty much condemn and are disgusted by the behaviour of these young girls. Some of you, who might have been supporting the showing of this movie, are now saying, I told you so, it isn't about child exploitation. Well, those people are sadly mistaken, and the reason for this is simply that at no point during this movie do any adults at any point really challenge what these children are up to. At the start of the movie, there is a scene in the school playground in which we are first introduced to the little girls' dance group, where we see the girls playing a stupid prank on a teacher by pretending to be statues. But the girls are dressed either as prostitutes or as though they're about to go out clubbing for the night. They're wearing tight little dresses and high heels. It is despicable and glaringly so. The teacher says to one of these girls, "What do you think you're wearing?" And that is it. That is the one and only verbal condemnation in the whole movie. Am I to believe that the majority of France thinks that little girls dressing up as streetwalkers is fine? Because that is the impression this movie gives you, simply by not challenging anything that these girls do. And then we come to the dancing. There isn't actually that much dancing in this movie, even though that seems to be a big part of the marketing. The clips you see of the little girls gyrating and grabbing their privates are all from the final dance scene, which is one of 4 or 5 dance moments from the movie, although the first one of those is actually just normal dancing and not provocative. The overly sexualized dancing was actually introduced to the other girls by the main character, Army, who, after hearing that her father is going to marry another wife, goes completely off of the rails and steals a phone from her much older cousin, then starts taking selfies for social media and watching videos of girls twerking in thongs in sexually charged music videos. Now, this comes completely out of nowhere in the movie. Why she would be watching these explicitly sexual dances instead of your average teeny bopper dance groups that you would expect to see children this age watching is an absolute mystery that this movie does not address or attempt to explain. She just starts teaching the other girls the things she saw in these videos, and they all just go along with it. And since they seem to have no parents, no responsible adult to watch over them, there is no one to tell them that there is anything wrong with what they are doing. Seeing an 11-year-old girl humping the floor, spanking another 11-year-old girl is not something that should be depicted on film, and certainly not by actual 11-year-olds. The only people who would like to see this are not the kind of people that should be making movies, nor should they be allowed near children. And speaking of people who probably shouldn't be allowed near children, the director of this movie's camera work leaves something to be desired. Mamouna Dakour claims to have spent over a year researching the effect on preteen children of being exposed to sexualized images and adult material online and on social media, and seems to believe that she is somehow showcasing that reality in this movie. But the reality is that she has chosen to film young girls engaging in obscene acts and filming it as though it were a music video, focusing on their private parts and lewd behaviour. Even when they enter a dance competition and are just in a preliminary stage, the judges don't say anything about the fact that they are 11 years old and performing apparent sex acts on the floor. It is utterly contemptible that the director/writer thought that this was a perfectly fine way to exhibit these girls, and to not give any kind of moral authority in the form of parents, teachers, dance instructors, judges, or even people standing nearby. There is no moral authority in this movie for these young girls to be given some direction by. There are no responsible people in this movie, which means that this is either a commentary about how migrant families don't give a crap about their children, or it's a commentary about how French schools don't give a crap about children, or it's a commentary about the degradation of society that doesn't give a crap about children. Or, and this is the one I think holds true, the person who wrote it is so far left and worryingly detached from reality that they didn't see anything wrong with treating children in this way. We all know the far left is creating paedophile apologists, and this movie could very well be a product of that movement. Why else would there be a scene in this movie whereby the main character, Army, gets caught by her cousin with the phone that she stole from him, and then tries to use her body to convince him to let her keep it, and when he rejects her, as a normal adult would, and takes his phone back, she grabs it off of him and locks herself in the bathroom, and then takes a picture of her privates and posts it online so everyone in her school can see it. This leads to a scene the next day when a boy spanks her bum in class and she retaliates by stabbing his hand with a pen, which in turn leads to a big scene at home with her mother, in which her mother tells her off about all the things she has been doing, like stealing money from her and lying and attacking her classmates, and apparently she's even heard rumours about her acting like a whore, though she seems more concerned about what her husband will think of her than she is concerned about her daughter. She even says that she will kill her, which is beyond the pale for any parent. And now we come to another thing that this movie highlights, and that is that Islamic culture and doctrine can destroy people and create broken families and terrorize young children who refuse to be indoctrinated into the religion. After her mother has told her off, the aunt says, "Go get the water," which refers to the Islamic version of holy water, I presume. And then they proceed to commit a form of water torture on Army in the form of making her stand in a cold room and sprinkling her with water, after which she appears to have a reaction akin to what you would expect from an evangelical healing, or maybe hypothermia. She starts shaking uncontrollably. Although Army does appear to be pretending for the benefit of her aunt and mother, it is still a cruel and evil practice, as we know that these cult-like exorcisms are just nonsense. Combined with the fact that Islam's illegal practice of polygamy has caused Army to become so rebellious and have what could most accurately be called a psychotic break, which was the root cause of all of these events in the movie, this movie could easily have ended up with what is so heinously called an honour killing. But maybe the writer wasn't willing to go that far into the religious ignominies of Islam. Some people will blither on about how this is a coming-of-age movie, simply because the main character Army is depicted as having had her period during the movie. But this is a misdirection thrown in simply because she is a young girl and the writer-director thought it would give the movie more relevance. It does not. It has no overarching story related to it, except to somehow imply that this little girl has become a woman, which is laughably absurd. Eventually Army is kicked out of her dance group after taking the pictures of her privates and posting them online, and the other girls call her a slut and want nothing to do with her. But by this point she is so invested in the dance group that she nearly kills one of the other girls by pushing her into a river so that she can take her place at the competition. And this is when we get that dance scene that everyone has seen those horrible still pictures from and the clips online. Then, halfway through that dance, she abandons the other girls and runs home to see her father marry his second wife. And the movie ends with her playing jump rope with other kids, being all happy, as though she has returned to being just the child she started as. It is all a nonsense and resolves nothing. This poor girl is clearly suffering mentally, maybe even from bipolar disorder or some other ailment. But we are apparently expected to believe that everything ends fine, with no more problems. So, in conclusion, the truth about Cuties is that it is a movie with terrible ideas depicted in a terrible way that tries to imply that young girls are being sexualized by social media and society in general. This is not the case. What is the case is that some parents are unfit and incompetent, and that people in society have become so afraid of being labelled an ist, a phobe, or an ism that they are willing to ignore things they see and treat them as someone else's problem, rather than confronting the things they see and trying to change what they know is wrong. Society needs a strong moral backbone, built upon common sense. Movies like this are just another form of degradation that do nothing for the wider world except normalize unacceptable behaviour. This has been Movie Suck, wishing that we all take better care of our children. They need our guidance more than ever in this topsy-turvy, damaged world. Signing out. Leave a like, share, subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the flip side.